Take a girl and a guy, and they fall madly in love and form a family. Sprinkle in some counseling degrees and a doctorate, a dream of transforming relationships as we know it. And 20 years later, we give you power couple Dr. Ray and Jean Kate'S. And this is their podcast, Couples Synergy.
Welcome back to another episode of Couples Synergy with Dr. Ray and Jean. Hi, I'm Dr. Ray.
And I'm Jean. And this is our podcast about love, marriage, and relationships.
Be sure to check us out online on our Facebook page and Instagram at Couples Synergy or our website, couplesynergy.com. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast or send us any suggestions on topics you'd like to hear more about. And now on to Couples Synergy, an in-depth look at love, marriage, and relationships, where we bring you our experience helping thousands of couples transform their relationships for nearly 20 years.
You know, every day we get to hear intimate details about a couple's celebrations, disappointments, and everyday challenges. We've often wished these stories were shared because we know we are more similar than different. So we've created not only an avenue where you can hear about people's intimate lives, but an atmosphere where people come over to our home pub, pour a drink, and share their stories.
On today's episode, we had the privilege of interviewing John Lee Dumas and his life partner and business partner, Kate Erickson, of Entrepreneurs on Fire.
Yeah, we actually recorded this episode in January remotely, but through Zoom.
Right.
And they're in Puerto Rico. And John and Kate are probably the most well-known and people in the space, in the podcasting space. He's like the number one podcaster.
Absolutely.
Right?
And probably the guests that we have interviewed that are most in the limelight.
Mm-hmm.
And so we thought this was a really awesome interview, and it really gives kind of a window into a couple who work together. First of all, they're business partners, right? And two, that they're in the limelight, right? And how do they navigate the relationship being in the limelight?
Mm-hmm. I'm really grateful that they came on our show. They were very candid, even to the point that they were less concerned about looking bad than they were about truly being honest about their relationship. And I really appreciate that. I think there's a special level of difficulty within an intimate relationship when you are public and successful people in the world. And they did meet and were a couple before they did become famous and wealthy. And so watching them navigate that and the bumps that happened through that was, really cool to see.
As you know, if you've been listening to our podcast, we know that relationships are really difficult. I mean, just us together, right? Trying to navigate our relationship and run a business together. It's very challenging. And so couples out there, don't feel alone. All right. And this podcast really gives you an idea of, how do people do that when they're really successful?
So this podcast is coming out not just audio, but video as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's another interesting thing because you get to see each other's reactions during the podcast. And if you're new to our podcast, to Couple Synergy, Real Couples, Real Stories podcast, you can also listen to our episode, which came out on February 13th. Do you know what number that is?
I don't remember what number that is.
Where we actually are very candid ourselves and talking about how difficult and rewarding it is to really put in the work in a relationship. So I want to thank John and Kate again for being on the podcast and for being so honest and forthcoming with their relationship.
So without further ado, John Lee Dumas is the host of Entrepreneurs on Fire, an award-winning podcast where he interviews inspiring entrepreneurs who are truly on fire. With over 2,000 episodes, 1 million and more listens a month, and 7 figures of annual revenue, JLD is just getting started. Visit EOFIRE.com to set your entrepreneurial journey on fire.
And I'd just like to do another thank you because we started listening to their podcast because of a friend of ours who actually joined Podcasters Paradise with them and really helped us learn the ropes of how to do podcasting and how to monetize and be in the world and equipment and all sorts of things that you need. I mean, we started this not knowing anything.
We knew nothing, right?
Yeah. And so thanks, John, for that, and Kate, that you not only all this great content that you guys are putting out on your podcast, Entrepreneurs on Fire, but also for having Podcasters Paradise and coming on our show and supporting us. Thank you.
So, hey, wanted to first say thank you so much for everything you guys are doing. We've had a counseling practice for 18 years, and we've always wanted to scale up, just didn't know how. And everything that you have been giving us, the tools and stuff on EOFIRE has really helped us. So thank you very much. Just want to say that right off the bat.
Awesome. Well, I received that, and I appreciate you guys putting in the hard work on your end to make a bigger impact.
Yeah. So we're going to just jump in because I know you guys have a tight schedule. Welcome to Couple Synergy and another episode. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Dr. Ray, and this is Jean.
I'm Jean, and this is our podcast about love, marriage, and relationships. Can you guys tell us the story of how you met?
Kate, you're better at this than me.
So I had just, I was moving apartments in San Diego. I went to go look at a unit that was available, but the person was still living it. So the landlord said, don't worry about it. Just go. The person that lives next door to that can show you their place. And it was just a studio complex. So all the units were exactly the same. So she said, just knock on number 3. He'll show you the place that's exactly the same. I knocked on number 3 and this guy answered the door.
Number 3. And what was it about the other person that you fell in love with?
Oh, I feel like for me, John's drive and his passion and his excitement for life and just his confidence, his strength, his knowledge, like there's just so much about John that I've looked up to since the very beginning. And we were very lucky. Like we were actually really good friends for a year before we ever got like romantically involved. So it really gave me the opportunity to get to know John just like as a person, not as, you know, a boyfriend or a significant other or anything like that. So those are some of the things that stand out for me about John.
What was it about Kate, John?
You know, they do say that opposites attract, and Kate and I are similar in some pretty important ways. Like we both really care about our health and our wellness, and we love working out and eating right and doing all those things. But we are different in a lot of ways as well. And one of the ways that, you know, I feel like Kate has a lot of strengths is in the patience department, the kindness department, the generosity department. And these are all areas that, you know, don't really come supernatural to me. You know, for many years, I was just like this hard driving athlete and then officer in the U.S. Army. And so, you know, I was really used to like giving orders and leading men, and not just like, you know, in the fake army, like this is war in Iraq, like life and death was happening. So, you know, some of that like real world kind of bled into my quote unquote civilian life after the military happened. And, you know, Kay was just able to really kind of polish those rough edges of mine and show me, you know, that what's that exact phrase? Sometimes, you know, honey is a lot better cure than vinegar. And that's just, you know, some of the few great qualities that she has that I've always really looked up to and admired.
That's awesome. Thank you for your service, by the way. I don't know if you know, Jean is a vet as well.
Wow,
wonderful.
that's awesome.
Back
Thank
at
you.
you. Thank you.
So, you know, one question we have is how has financial success and notoriety, how has it affected your relationship, you know, throughout the years?
Both enhanced and hindered.
Yeah, I'll take on the enhanced side of things first. I do feel like I grew up in an incredibly healthy financial family. My father was quite financially successful, and he was very open about money and about what things cost. And just, I really feel like I grew up understanding how money worked in the world, which I think is a massive failing across definitely America, but definitely probably the vast majority of the world. Is, you know, the fact that an 18-year-old can come out of high school and be great at geometry but can't balance a checkbook, it just blows my mind. Like just the basic level of understanding finances. And that's a huge reason why, you know, people start so far behind the ball with debt and getting cars and mortgages they don't. And then they bring that into relationships and that debt and that stress and that month to month, like having to, you know, really cut corners and blame each other for spending X on this and Y on that really can hinder a relationship. But, you know, with myself and Kate, you know, we had both sides of the spectrum. You know, like, frankly, we're pretty open books when it comes to finances. And, you know, when Kate moved out to Maine to live with me for the first time as a couple, she brought a couple $1,000s, along with her. And, I would have likely been in a very similar situation as she was in her late 20s financially. But, because of the Army and getting a college scholarship, and then, being deployed and just being able to build up a bank account due to those reasons, I did have some financial savings. So immediately when we became a couple, there was never that financial stress that does come along with a lot of like, who's going to pay, this month's rent, who's going to, pay the electricity bill and stuff like that. So as that started, we always had financial stability in our relationship. We never knew not having that. But as our financial situation changed, and we went from like $100,000 in the bank, which was great, but now we're making $100,000 a month, a year and a half into our relationship, that can change a lot of things. But Kate's parents put some great mindset mentality in her mind as well as she was growing up, and I was able to use that as well. And I think we kind of just took it one step at a time. I mean, there definitely wasn't a situation where we looked to each other and we're like, we're rich, like let's go party and go do all these things. We're like, wow, this is crazy. But like all good things, this will come to an end. Like I do love that phrase, this too shall pass. And I know that, this too shall pass. Like our financial success that we're having and we've had now for the last 6 or 7 years, we're going to encounter future difficulties. Like who knows what that is, but we want to prepare for it. So we have a good mindset around that. We moved to Puerto Rico specifically to really build our overall net worth and net wealth and protect ourselves for these upcoming falls. But overall, like I really feel like we've just kind of still had that frugal mentality. Like when I was in law school, I remember the phrase that I loved, which was, if you live like a lawyer when you're in law school, you're going to live like a law student when you're a lawyer. Because so many people just have like all of these aspirations, like I'm going to make hundreds of thousands of dollars when I'm a lawyer. And then they get out, they have debt, and they don't make as much money as they think they do. And then they're hurting. We've kind of always had that frugal mentality where we much prefer putting money in the bank and being able to invest in the right things, and not just have to have like all the things right now at this moment.
That's awesome. Yeah, we know that as doctors, right? Living as doctors. So, Kate, what about you as far as the hindrances, of success and notoriety?
Yeah, I mean, I can think of a couple situations where like John and it's so important to us, like our communication with one another. And that was one of the very first kind of like hard stops we put on working together and like having a relationship together, is like we have to be able to communicate everything to each other. And thankfully that has, I think, probably stopped before it ever started any type of like major hindrances. But of course, when you're running a 7-figure business, the stakes are very high and there's a lot of stress that comes with that. Like there was a situation after we moved to Puerto Rico where like we had to switch one of our merchant accounts, but like our merchant provider at the time wasn't like very open about that. And we didn't really have like the support that we would have loved to have in making a big transition like that, because we literally had to change everything about like how we accepted payments. And like a month went by and then I realized that all of our American Express payments, like they were being accepted, but we had to have a separate merchant in order to actually collect them ourselves. And like big things like that kind of go missed in the business can definitely, John and I had a really serious sit down conversation. John's like, look, this is like your responsibility in the business. Like these are things that we can't not catch. And so, there have been definitely like some very serious conversations that we've had with one another over like the importance of having your finger on the pulse and knowing your numbers. And, doing our monthly income reports and stuff like that certainly helps us huge, because it forces me to literally go through line by line every single dollar that's coming in and every single dollar that's going out. And I think that's been a huge help. And, again, those hindrances aren't so hard hitting when you really consistently keep a finger on the pulse.
Yeah, and I can remember a story that I think is really fitting here that I think could help is we're on this cruise and we're really enjoying ourselves. We're having a blast. But, I'm on the balcony. We're doing very little work at the time. We're just kind of monitoring emails and social media. So I'm out on the balcony, like enjoying like a morning coffee or something. And I get this email from one of our Paradise members. He's like, John, he's like, I just love what you guys have created and the value that you give is so amazing. I just can't not let this go through, even though this is going to financially hurt me as an individual. And I'm speaking for him right now, the person who emailed. He said, but I just want to let you know that, he goes, every single time you update a credit card using your update credit card on your website, I stopped getting charged immediately. So I'm sure that every single person that updated their credit cards over the years in Podcasters Paradise has not paid a cent since. And he's like, so I just love what you guys do. So even though, I could keep my mouth shut and save a few dollars, I want to let you guys know about this. And I was pissed. Like we were on a cruise, we're on vacation essentially. And I sat Kate down and I'm like, listen, we're going to compartmentalize these two conversations right now. Like, I'll be brief because we, don't have a ton of time right now. But I was like, essentially, I'm incredibly disappointed with you as a business partner that you've let this happen. This needs to be fixed. This is our livelihood, and you failed here. And at the same time, I failed because the responsibility, and I've always felt this way, coming from my days as an officer in the U.S. Army, always rises to the top. And that's just how it is, period, end of story. But at the same time, like, I want you to know that I know I failed, but I want you to know that I think that you failed as well. And we need to fix this. And then I said, okay, we've had the conversation. Let's button it up. Let's do what we need to do over the next hour to start getting the ball rolling towards fixing this. But when we leave this room and we go out and we have dinner tonight, or we're going to a show or going to an excursion, it's over. We're not going to talk about this. I'm not going to have any grudging feelings or anger towards what happened to that situation. I'm leaving it in this conversation, in this room, compartmentalizing it, and we'll come back to it. But I'm not going to let it ruin a day, a vacation, a week, a trip, whatever that might be. So you need to have those hard conversations when you're in a relationship and you're working together, and you can't lighten the load, or you're just kicking the can down the street. But at the same time, you can't let that bleed into everything that you do in life. And when I know, for instance, that at the end of every day when Kate's, prepping dinner and doing her thing, at that point, business conversations are over. We're going into evening mode, chillaxing mode, and we're not talking about business.
Yeah, quick question before our last question. We are wondering, are you guys married?
No.
We're not married.
And if not, then why, are you guys not married? What was the decision behind that? Or do you guys have plans in the future for that?
I think the future holds, whatever it will hold. And honestly, when it comes to marriage, there's just some things that I believe in, some things that I don't. And I don't not believe in marriage. My personal stance is when there are kids on the way, there should be a familial unit. And that is very important to me. But until then, I think people get married way too soon, way too quickly, because things change. When Kate and I started dating, she was 27, 28 years old. I was 30 years old. I'm 40 now. She's 36, almost 37. We are completely different people. We're unbelievably lucky that our relationship has done nothing but, grow together, but who knows if it hadn't. And, the fact that, and again, not to go down rabbit holes or anything, but, that just because you should do these things and because, the government would prefer that you did these things. That's why we moved to Puerto Rico, so we don't have to deal with the government.
Last question. What is it that your partner does that they love you?
I'll let you start, Kate.
John has a way of being very appreciative, and I feel like we know each other's love language pretty well, to the point where he will take a time out just in a completely random moment, completely unrelated to whatever's going on, to say that he's proud of me, to recognize growth, both personal and professional. And he's always there for me. There's never ever been a moment where I've gone to John or he has not sensed that something's wrong, where he's not just fully available to be my rock, to support me, to do whatever he needs to do to be there for me. And that means a lot.
Yeah, for me, it's the little things too. I mean, Kate's very good about, showing her feelings, whether it be, with hugs and kisses and touches. And, to me, that's, really adds up over time. It doesn't have to be just one grand display of emotion, but it's just all the little things intraday, intra-week that really add up, and, shows me that she loves me.
Human beings have been sharing their stories for thousands of years, and we hope that by you guys sharing your story, it's enhanced your life and the lives of our listeners.
Thank you so much both for being on the podcast, and we wish you all the best.
Yeah,
Thanks, it
thank
was
you
great
guys so
hanging out.
much.
Thank you, guys.
Human beings have been sharing their stories since the beginning of time to bond and heal and grow. And we hope that by you guys sharing your story, it's enriched your lives and the lives of our listeners.
So we want to thank all of you for listening and tuning in to Couples Synergy. Our passion is in helping couples and people have happy and healthy relationships, and this podcast gives us a fun way of bringing our knowledge and expertise to you, our listeners. For all of you listening, please subscribe to our podcast and please leave us a review. If you have any questions, comments, or topic suggestions, please email us at contact@couplessynergy.com. For more information about Couple Synergy and our programs such as the Couples Weekend Intensive and our premier program called Couple to Couple, also our Connections community, look us up online at couplessynergy.com.
And you can join us on our Facebook page, Couple Synergy Community, where you can interact with us and other like-minded people. And again, we want to thank John and Kate. If you want to check out their stuff, it's Entrepreneurs on Fire. And if you know anyone who could benefit from this episode, please download it and share it. And thank you for listening.
Until next time, synergize your life and synergize your love.
You have been listening to Couple Synergy with Dr. Ray and Jean Kate'S. Couple Synergy was recorded, edited, and produced by Dr. Ray and Jean Kate'S. Voiceover and music entitled Breathe and Let Go was recorded and composed by Gina Gonzalez.